Hey guys, KangasKid18 here. Yesterday we got an amazing trailer on the official Pokemon channel, and I just want to talk about it real quick because it was so good. We got our first real looks at the other island deities, and I gotta say, I wasn't really sold on them with the Pokédex leak, but seeing them in battle has really helped me get on board. It seemed like everybody, including myself, assumed they would share typings with the Oricorio forms, but instead they were totally different. In some ways fitting, like Water Fairy for Tapu Fini, but in some ways totally random, like Grass Fairy for Tapu Bulu. I mean, really, a Grass Fairy Bull Pokemon looks like it should have been Fighting Fairy to me. But anyway, the Tapus get this hilarious Z-move called the Guardian of Alola, wherein a trainer can literally look their opponent in the eye and say to their Pokemon, "Crush them." More importantly though, we gotta look at the battle tree on top of Mount Lanakila, where you can face trainers from other games like Wally and his Gardevoir, and Cynthia and her Garchomp, which I was a little surprised to see her. I haven't really been on board with this theory that we're getting Sinnoh remakes this generation, but it does seem odd to me that they would create a whole new model for Cynthia without using it for something. Anyway, lastly, we got to see two familiar trainers, and I gotta say, this is probably my favorite part of the trailer. I legit geeked out when I saw Red and Blue come on the screen with new designs showing how much they've aged since the original Pokemon games. And after all these years, Red still doesn't say a word. I don't know about you guys, but his silence when you challenge him atop Mount Silver is one of my favorite moments from any Pokemon game. But lastly, and perhaps the main focus of the trailer, was the final evolutions of our starter Pokemon. The Grass Ghost type Decidueye, the Fire Dark type Incineroar, and the Water Fairy type Primarina. Now there's been a lot of talk about the secondary type circle this generation, and I agree. When I saw that Decidueye was Grass Ghost type, I knew there must have been some change to its relationship with Fairy to make the type circle work. But I don't think that Fairy is now weak to Ghost like some people are saying. Instead, check out how a Fairy move would affect Incineroar. If they haven't changed anything, it would do neutral damage, not super effective damage. So I think this generation, the secondary type circle is actually made up of resistances. Dark resists Ghost, Fairy resists Dark, and the new change will be that Ghost now resists Fairy. But anyway, we're here for the Shinies, right? Some of the Shinies for the final starter evos look pretty good, but I think I could do better. So let's dive right in with the first of our evolutions, Decidueye. Now I gotta say, Ghost type was about the last secondary typing I would have expected for Decidueye. I kinda thought it would keep flying or maybe even pick up Dark type, but Ghost is pretty cool and I love its design, so much so that I might choose it as my starter, bucking a water starter trend that I've had since back in Pokemon Blue. In any case, let's get on to the Shinies. Now my speculation for this one is largely gonna follow the same speculation as its previous evolutions. So one option would be to turn its hood a dark blue, giving its wings a slightly different dark blue, and have its highlights be a champagne green. This is pretty similar to one of the Shinies that I gave Dartrix, and I still think it would be cool to see in game. However, we could also turn the hood a nice brown color, giving it green wings and kind of pinkish highlights. Again, I think this looks awesome, and would go nicely with the Shinies I previously made for Rowlet and Dartrix. But here's the one we actually ended up getting. A blue-green hood with dark green wings and red highlights, which I'm not even mad about. I think the Shiny looks great, and in fact, this whole evolution line has awesome Shinies. Of all the starters, I think this is probably the one I'm gonna hunt first. Anyway, moving on to the final fire starter this generation, we've got Incineroar. There was a lot of hate about Incineroar, and I never understood that. It always looked fine to me. Maybe it's just because people thought it was going to be another firefighting type. But seeing this thing in battle was a real treat, because it just oozes personality. I personally love it, and if I didn't like Decidueye so much, I might consider choosing it as my starter. But let's get on to the Shinies here. Now, following my previous speculation, Incineroar is clearly a giant bipedal tiger, and so I thought it should become a white tiger, and there's two ways you can do that. My favorite option is just to take its red coloration and turn it white, but make the eyes and fire belt blue. This falls in line with one of the Shinies that I'd previously given Torracat, and if Incineroar had actually ended up looking like this, it would have been by far my favorite Shiny of all time. Alternatively though, you could invert these colors, making the previously black parts white and the white bits black, but again, keeping those same blue eyes and belt. And this still looks good and more in keeping with some of the Shinies that I'd previously given Litten and Torracat. But here's the Shiny we actually got. Pretty much the same as the previous one where the black bits turn white, but the orange stripes and fire belt stay the same color. I mean, this Shiny does look pretty cool, just not nearly as good as either of the white tigers. Oh well, I guess. And finally, we've got the final water-type evolution for this generation, it's Primarina. Now, I was not a fan of Primarina when the concept art got leaked, but after seeing it in battle, I don't know, I kinda get it now. It's very elegant and graceful looking. It's still probably my third favorite out of the starter evos, but I don't dislike it like I did before. Anyway, the Shinies for this one are pretty straightforward. The first option is to make it pink and purple, like pretty much every other blue Pokemon. So to set it apart, I gave it sea green highlights and golden eyes, which I think looks pretty cool, and if you add Popplio and Brionne in there, the whole pink and purple purple motif looks pretty good, but I think this line would look even better in turquoise, except here I gave Primarina golden highlights and dark blue eyes. I would have been ecstatic if Popplio and Brionne had ended up looking like this too, because turquoise shinies are some of my favorite shinies of all time. However, here's what we ended up getting instead. The light blue tail turns a dark blue, the hair becomes blonde, and the frills turn a pale pink. Overall, not my favorite shiny, but I think the blonde hair is pretty unique, so I kinda can't wait to start hunting this one. Anyway guys, that's all I've got for you today. Hope you enjoyed this video. We're gonna have more like it coming soon, so keep an eye out for that in the near future. But until then guys, as always, we are gonna see you on the next shiny.